then obviously the complete track and trace of the product, and the sustainable supply chain where I can actually tell my consumer where was this coffee being produced, which farm it was produced, who picked it, who bagged it, where it was bagged, how it was transported and brought to you, Mr. Customer.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Greetings and welcome along to this episode of the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain. Hope you're having a great summer. Recently, I attended SAP's TechEd conference in India. While I was there, I had the privilege of catching up with Amit Jain, the head of SAP at Olam Mindsprint. And I got the opportunity to discuss Olam's evolution from a grains trading company to a global food and agri-tech giant. And we looked at Mindsprint's role in digital and enterprise transformation. We also explored the impact of technology on farming practices, the importance of sustainability, and the role of technology in supporting smaller farmers. Before we jump in, I'd like to say a big thank you to our show partners for their ongoing support. So thank you to 1NZ, 2 Degrees, Spark, HP, and Gorilla Technology. All right, let's jump in. So, Amit, tell me a little bit about the makeup of Olam as a business and where Mindsprint fits in.
So Olam is one of the largest food and agri-tech companies globally. Olam started in 1989 as a grains trading company, and they were the same till about beginning of 2005, 2006. That's when the company decided to get into upstream, downstream supply chain and the complete end-to-end food tech. So basically from production of grains, production of anything related to food, processing that food, end-to-end supply chain, and then distribution of that food to end consumers and the businesses that bought from us. Around 2021, 22 is when Olam decided to demerge, and it was demerged into 3 separate organizations. One of them is called Olam Food Ingredients, which is now headquartered out of London. And Olam Food Ingredients deals in coffee, cocoa, dairy, nuts, and all those things which require additional processing before they can be sold. Second part is Olam Agri, which works on largely the grains and similar produce. And the third part of the organization is Olam Global Holdings, and Mindsprint is part of Olam Global Holdings. Mindsprint is basically, we pride ourselves in an intelligent organization which focuses on digital and enterprise transformation. While we have been working with all the Olam entities in the past, now we have started to work with companies outside the Olam landscape. Also, as part of Olam Global Holdings is we have other organizations, for example, Jiva, Terrascope, which are smaller startups, which focus on making the food supply chains more sustainable, doing innovation around that. Also looking at how can we reduce the carbon footprint of what we do, not just as a organization, but also as the food that we supply to our customers. So that is the landscape of Olam and where Mindsprint fits in.
Great. And to get a picture of the scale, what's the turnover for Olam?
So Olam is a $45-50 billion organization. That's annual revenue.
That's rather large then.
Yes.
That's fascinating. Now, looking at your side of the business with Mindsprint, what are the services you offer, and what was sort of the trigger to provide services not just within the business, but to offer those out more broadly?
So when demerger was done in 21-22, Mindsprint was at that point in time called OTBS, Olam Technology and Business Services. But then we said we have enough capability and capacity, and we have done a lot of SAP work, for example, that we should be able to now, become an independent organization. We should start looking at not just serving the Olam, but also take our capabilities and capacities to organizations outside. That's when we were set up as an independent service provider. Today, we largely focus on enterprise applications, which largely is SAP. And we do a lot of work around SAP, and we have tons of experience in SAP because of the work that we have done at Olam. The second part is digital. Digital includes all your digital transformation, data analytics, etc., etc. And then we have an organization which looks after cybersecurity, because that is very, very critical in today's time and age. And there's a fourth part of the organization which is called business process services. Business process services largely consulting in other organizations in areas of finance, supply chains, human resources, etc., etc. So it is more generic compared to the other parts of the organization.
Interesting. And what's the scale of the business at this point?
So we have around 2,500 employees, and we are looking to grow extensively over the next 2 or 3 years. Yes.
In terms of the opportunities that you see for your business, where are you seeing the demand and the opportunities to grow?
So food supply chain is changing drastically. A lot of new technologies are enabling that. We talk about blockchain because that can help you look at the end-to-end supply chain of food. We can track the product from end to end using blockchain. We have sensors now to look at whether the soil needs to be irrigated or a palm tree is dying. Similarly, you have RFID devices that can be fitted in. Then you have the transportation angle of the food from one port to the other, one country to the other, one continent to the other. So tracking and tracing that whole thing end to end. And obviously there is, with COVID, expediting the complete, taking the food to the plate of the end consumer, right? There are a lot of e-commerce startups that are there which are helping us do that. So a lot of that changes in the supply chain of food is where we see a lot of opportunities from an Olam and our other customers who are in the agri-tech industry. Outside the agri-tech space, we are getting a lot of opportunities with the customers who want to modify and change their supply chains. So while our focus has been largely on food supply chain, but the basics of supply chain don't change. Some of the technologies that are required for supply chain don't change. So a lot of customers are coming to us and asking us to help them making their supply chains more effective. We see a lot of demand there. Then we see a lot of demand with the other customers who are in environment of food supply chain. The customers who either are suppliers to a food agri company, or customers who are buyers from a food agri company, or people who consume what is being sold to them. So we see a lot of demand there.
Looking at the agri-tech world, we've had considerable change, and it seems to be continuing to take place very quickly. How has that been playing out? What are the different technologies and pieces that you've been involved in?
So if we stick only to the food supply chain, blockchain is one important aspect, because blockchain can help you track your supply chain end to end. You can track each and every product that we sell to our customers end to end using blockchain. We are starting to use some sensors to, as I said earlier, to look at the which part of the soil is better than the other, how much irrigation needs to be done. Then we also look at RFIDs and tags being attacked to our palm plantations to see how they are. Then obviously the complete track and trace of the product, and the sustainable supply chain, where I can actually tell my consumer where was this coffee being produced, which farm it was produced, who picked it, who bagged it, where it was bagged, how it was transported and brought to you, Mr. Customer. So we see a lot of demand around that. And obviously there's a lot of changes in behavior of the end consumer who is buying from us, right? So before COVID, a lot of people will go to the store and buy stuff. Now people don't want to go to the store as much, right? I mean, they still do for a change, but everybody wants to sit at home and buy. So the buying patterns are changing, and they want to know for sure that the food that I'm buying for you is good food, right? Is it sustainable? So some of those things are helping us think differently than we have in the past.
So talking about the role of blockchain, anything more that you can share there? Because I guess there's often sort of debate whether blockchain is truly useful or not, but you're using the blockchain today.
Blockchain is very, very useful for us. We use a solution called TrueTrace, which is fully integrated with our SAP. And also we have been using it to make sure that all the compliance and regulations of especially the European ones are fully complied to. Coming about future of blockchain, I really don't know, because the technology is evolving so fast. Obviously in future, if different technology come in, we will probably move to that. I can't also comment if blockchain will be helpful for others. I sure do think it is, but definitely helping us.
and then the role of sort of sensors and so on the farms. Is that something you're seeing a really big increase in, and does it make a big difference from a sustainability standpoint and from an effectiveness for running a farm to have this sort of technology, or does it really need the farmers to be very technology savvy in order to take advantage?
So one of the key aspects or key ingredients of how Olam works is not just sustainable supply chain, but also the sustainability of the environment we live in. And one of the important aspects when we are talking about farming is water. How do I reduce the consumption of water in my farms? If I'm able to track the parts of the soil which need more irrigation than the other, or which need less irrigation than the other, and if I have sensors can give me that data today. So I can direct my farmer to go and tell him, okay, this part of the farm does not need to be watered today. This part of the farm needs more water today. That can help me conserve water too. So yes, it is dual purpose. One is, making sure that the right amount of irrigation is done. Also at the same time, helping us reduce the water consumption and adding to the conservation theme all over. So, sustainability both from the food perspective and sustainability also from the environment perspective.
Now, this move to a sort of more technological farm, it would seem to me it's easier to do that with larger and larger
Yes.
farms and not so much the sort of smaller farms.
Yes.
Is that very much the trend that you're seeing?
Absolutely, because it's important to do that for large farms, because otherwise it becomes very labor-intensive job. So I was telling Paul in the beginning that, we have had to try, for example, doing drone imagery for our large palm plantations, right? So that you can actually pinpoint which palm is dying, which palm tree needs to be taken out, right? Similarly, we have done satellite imagery for these large plantations otherwise to see which part of the soil needs to be irrigated more, as I said earlier. So yes, for large farms, it's absolutely a must, in my opinion, if you want to be sustainable, if you want to make sure that, you're doing the right job in the right manner, absolutely required. For smaller farms also, we are trying to do it, but, it's not that effective as it would be for a large farm, simply because of volumes and the work that needs to be done.
Yeah. Do you think that will mean that maybe a few decades out, the smaller farms are probably going to be a lot less common?
I don't know. I can't really predict the future. But, if you ask my personal opinion, and, in my opinion, that wouldn't be the case, at least in the communities that we work with, because one of our tenets of Olam is to make the farmers prosperous as we become prosperous. So it would be counterproductive if I went and told a smaller farmer, I will take everything for you, but I'll not give you anything in back, right? So as our tenet is, we make them prosperous so they'd continue to work with us. From an Olam perspective, we wouldn't like it to die.
So maybe the models will need to change
Yes.
in order to support
Probably, yes.
those smaller
I'm sure new
farmers.
technology will come, which will help the smaller farmers do better than they are doing today. Maybe their yields will increase. Maybe they will also start consuming lesser water than they do today. Maybe they will start producing some of the newer foods that, we need, because you see a lot of demand around new proteins, right? Because people are becoming more conscious about animal welfare. Do I really need to eat that much meat? But then there's a question, do I get enough protein from the vegetarian food? So probably newer proteins can be found in newer food products, which potentially could come decades from now. And we should be able to help with some of the animal stuff.
Yeah, fascinating. Oh, thank you, Amit. Anything else that you wanted to add before we finish?
No, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and obviously because we're in SAP conference, I should talk a little bit about SAP too. So I am very passionate about SAP, not because we are in SAP conference. I have been working in SAP technology more than 25 years now, and everything that I talked about, SAP has been with us lock, stock, and barrel right from the beginning. We are an end-to-end SAP shop. We use almost every technology that SAP comes out with, and we work very, very closely with SAP. So I could talk about sustainable farms. I could talk about a lot of other things, but wouldn't have been possible without SAP.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Cheers.
Well, thank you for joining me, Paul Spain, on this episode of the New Zealand Tech Podcast. Hope you're really enjoying your summer, and we have more episodes coming your way. So stay tuned for the latest NZ Tech Podcast, NZ Business Podcast episodes especially, and you'll find all of those via your favourite podcast app. And if you're listening to the podcast but haven't seen any of our videos, then definitely also look out for us on YouTube, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. All right, thanks everyone, and a big thank you, of course, to our show partners, to Gorilla Technology, HP, Spark, 2 Degrees, and 1NZ.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.